First off, I want to say thank you so much. We're celebrating the 10,000 subscribers. I'm thrilled. When we created this channel, we weren't sure the interest it would have. It seems like you guys are really interested. I love talking with you guys in the comments, learning about tattoos, teaching about process. I mean, this is just extraordinary. So thank you guys so much. I'm definitely checking the comments all the time to see what kind of videos you guys want. One video that was continually requested was how to make a stencil. A lot of people asked for more of a realistic design, so that's what I'll be going over today. So I'm gonna use the clown we created from the AI video as our reference today, just to keep that theme. It is kind of a realistic image. I like the image, so that's what we'll be going over to stencil. So I have my image in here. The first thing I'm gonna do, because I'm a black and gray artist, is I'm gonna turn the saturation down. So I have that. We have this guy here. And there's a few things I'm just gonna run through really quickly on things I like to do with reference before we get to the stencil. All right, so I have my image here, I have the clown. I'm a black and gray artist, so I'm gonna desaturate this thing. I'm gonna make it black and gray. And then I always like to know where it's going on the body. So just for this, I have the forearm pulled up. This would be the right forearm. And I'm gonna have the image. And what I'm gonna do is just kind of make it to size. Like, what would this thing look like if it's actually gonna be tattooed? Now, what I like to do is kind of find what I think is my center point of the design. And for me, it's like right here with the face, right? So keep that in mind. That's like our center. So we're gonna move that over on the body. So I would kind of move it more like here. Maybe scale it down a little bit. And then to check that, to see what it looks like, I'm gonna just erase the sides. Cool, and we're looking good. We're in this range. And this is kind of a method I'll be using throughout the tattoo, erasing the sides to see what it'll look like if it's wrapping. So having that, we have our image, and we have what it'll look like on the side there. Kind of pre-plan this for you guys. Now it looks great to me. I think it could add a little bit. To me, this image looks a little bit flat. So something that I will do is I will remember my flow points. And what I mean by that is, here, let me get this background a little bit gray so we can see. I'll do this with white typically. So the flow of the arm is kind of going like this, right? So step 2, check our flow points. Step 1, put it on the body, make sure we like how it looks. Step 2, check our flow. And this might be the time that, we're drawing either some negative space stuff, maybe we're taking images that are relatable to the character and imposing them. And what this is gonna do is create depth and layers, right? So I had this one kind of pre-drawn, this little squiggly stuff. And when I add this in, you can really see depth starting to form. And what I mean by that is we have, here, let me do this in red so you can see what I'm talking about. We have this in our forefront, this negative. Then we have our middle, which is our clown, our jester. And then we have even behind him in our background, this one. I like to just add layers like that. When we just had the jester, to me it was flat, it was just the image. So little things like this can really improve the design. I don't want to focus on that stuff too much, but just, this is my sped up process to getting to the final image. We created that in AI, now we're looking at the flow points, we're looking at how it fits the body, we're adding to this image, we're adding on to this image. And then lastly, I would check the light sources. So, I mean, I really do like the light sources on this, but what I might do is add, a little bit to the nose, these highlight points, increase in contrast. Another way I can do this is messing with the curves, right? I can make things darker, I can make them lighter. The image is pretty good for me. I did add a little bit, and what I'll do is I will kind of show these points, as you can see, are where I added a little bit of light, and then I added a little bit of dark. So I'll do the same thing with this. You can see these points flashing. Really though, I don't think the image needed much. That was just to show you guys. Also, check the light source at the end. Make sure you like it. Make sure it has good contrast. These are things you could just bump up in the tattoo, but sometimes it's a helpful reminder to do that. So let's get into the stencil. Now that we got our final image, you know, we got this guy, we love it, it looks great on the skin. When we, you know, erase it, it looks nice. Cool, all those points match to me. The negative space looks good. It looks like he's like in the arm. I love that look. Cool, let's get to the stencil. So I'm gonna get rid of the body part. We already know we like this image. We're gonna make the background white again. We're gonna blow this thing up. All right, let's get into the stencil. So what do we got so far? We have step 1, generate our reference in AI. Step 2, place it on the body, design it for that area. Step 3, check the flow of the body. In checking the flow, we can add the depth points. You know, we can put things in front, behind, make this image really dynamic. A lot of the times the negative space I'll use is really just the flow of the body. Lastly, 4, we're gonna check our light source, and then we have our final image. So now we're gonna get to the stencil. Typically I draw the stencil in black, but today I'm just gonna draw it in red for you guys so you can kind of see what we're doing. I'm gonna be using the technical pen I have here, just because it tapers off at the end. It gives me a little bit more control. So I don't really think it matters where you start, but what I'm doing is I'm trying to find the shapes. What I mean by that is the shapes in the image. And I'm always thinking about how would I tattoo this? I tattoo, you know, the 3RL, and I layer things. So I'm gonna be looking at my grayscale. So I'm gonna start over here, and I'm just gonna get this outside, and I'm gonna find this tapered off shape here. And a lot of times I'm just like simplifying things, you know, and I'm creating this. See this like little line here. I don't always perfectly stick to the reference, you know, because sometimes there's all these like unnecessary details in there. I'm finding my own folds in these clothing. And as I break this down, you can kind of see the tones better. You know, this is a dark to light fade, dark to light fade. This is a dark shadow. So this would be darker than the surrounding. Dark, a little bit of light in the middle, back to dark, mid-tone, light. When I'm moving through my stencil, if the tones are easily visible, I'm doing it correctly. You know, there might be like some areas where you're not sure how to stencil it because it's very chaotic. So start with what you know. And in those situations, I start with the black or like the dark parts. So I'm gonna move my way through this. I'm simplifying. Look, I got a little triangle there forming. Anything that is like a dividing line, I always make sure I stencil. So for me, it's gonna be these big folds. So it's gonna be this one right here. It's gonna be this one right here. And remember, like our images aren't always perfect. And they're not always 100%, you know, transferable into like tattoos, and sometimes we have to change it a little bit to make it into a tattoo. Like you might see things with like crazy amount of texture, and we might not have to do every little texture point, but if we can just do enough that you get what it is, using our blacks, you know, that can be the difference between a muddy, crowded tattoo and a tattoo that looks like it has texture. So we're building these things again, you know, you can see that this is dark. You can see that there's a cut right here, you know, cut right here and here. And we're just leaving ourselves like little notes for when we do the tattoo. And like I said, always thinking about how would I tattoo this. So this part that I just drew, I'll change so you can see. I would start in this area here because it's our darkest area. Then I would go over it to here. And then finally I'd go over the whole thing with my 3RL. And that's exactly how I would do that little fold. And to me it's simple. I mean, we're talking about 3 layers, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm just trying to simplify things. I'm trying to make it very legible for myself in the tattoo. There might be certain textures or things that you're not as familiar with that you might want to over stencil a little bit more, but then there might be things that you're really comfortable with, like just a clean fade, you know, like in here. So I might leave this pretty simple, like I'm just mapping out where the highlight is. There's a little shadow over there, you know, but it's pretty open. Over here we kind of got this shadow. I'm just reminding myself that that area is a little darker than this area. Cool, so I would just follow that around for the entire like collar of this. We have our big negative space thing here in the forefront, so I'll just trace that. No tattoo, no ink will be in this area, so it's pretty simple. I did this kind of fast, so I'm going to change the shape a little. Creating the stencil is also a great time to improve things or sharpen things or change their shape a little bit. Like I said, references aren't always perfect. I end up doing this a lot with my castles. Sometimes things will just be off or perspectives look weird. I always do my stencils by hand. I know that there are apps out there and, you know, programs that will translate it into you know, a stencil for you. I don't like that though. When I hand draw it, I become very familiar with the image. I can almost plan out how I'm gonna tattoo it, which is very important to me. I feel like when I use one of those apps, I'm just like really going into it blind. Like I know how I tattoo things in layers. I know that when there is like a hard shadow, I'll flick off the shadow to create fades. And I like to be able to make marks for those things. What I mean by that is like right in here, this is a very like dark shadow. It's almost like a line, like now you pick a line. And if I'm going to be shading off this, I'm going to be picking into that line and flicking off, you know, with my 3RL. So I want that line to be marked. So cool, I have my forefront image in there. I'm starting to shape some of this stuff. Now if I tattooed this, I wouldn't be making any lines in here. It would all be like shadows. But using dark shadows to show where things, you know, start and stop. I remember in the beginning it was very difficult for me to make the stencils. I wasn't sure how. I would see, you know, everyone does it a little bit different because everyone tattoos a little bit different. I could use a stencil made by like Joe or Nate, and I might look at it and be like, what the hell are these guys doing here? I don't even know what they're marking. Even in collabs, you know, I've seen people look at my stencils and they're like, why are you marking these lines, you know, instead of these or whatever. So it is a very personal thing. And I think it just comes from the experience of knowing how you tattoo yourself and like what areas are important and what you can make up in the tattoo. You know, you might be really comfortable with, you know, the shadows, you know, so maybe I only have to like mark this, you know, and this. Maybe you're uncomfortable and you want to mark exactly where the fade ends, you know, where midtones are. But I would definitely pay attention to when you're tattooing. You know, if certain thoughts come across, like, you know, maybe you're like, oh, I wish I made a mark for where that started, or I wish I took more time to stencil out this texture, or maybe I made it too busy. It's hard to see, you know, what's a line and what's not. And as you start to pay attention to these things, it'll help you improve on your stencil. And it's always a good idea, you know, even though everyone does it differently, to ask to look at other people's stencils, see how they choose to mark things. You know, I know people that only mark the black, like everything is off the black. I know people that start with the negative. My one buddy, like he really is just stenciling the negative space. So he would do something like this and then tattoo everything around that. You know, that's what makes sense to him. Where someone else, which I think I kind of favor this, you know, you're really just stenciling the black. Knowing like, okay, I'll just start with the black and I'll push my fade and create negative around that frame. All right, so we're at the face, we're at the hair. I just want to go over a few points with this. Hair, I'm not going for every hair follicle, every line in there. I'm really just going for flow on hair. I want to get the general direction of where it's going. I don't want to put too much in there. I don't want to make it crowded, because negative space in hair, dark points, like it just makes it look great. And if I fill it up too much with like midtones, I can make this thing look muddy. I think someone that does an amazing job with hair is Alex Sorsa. He puts like just enough in there to make it look realistic and represent the flow, but not too much where it looks like you took a liner and just made a bunch of like spaghetti. So I'm looking for these like hard cuts to show me exactly where the hair is going and how it's curling. And now I'm just kind of deciding like what I'm gonna make dark and what I'm gonna make light, like in the tattoo. So I'd probably make this dark. It gets a little lighter as it comes out. This dark. This is gonna be kind of like our lightest area. And then I would push this back just a little. Right, so this is how I would be like stenciling the hair. And then this is dark. It's simple. You know, I wouldn't leave those lines in, those like cross-hatching lines, but just to show you guys, here's another deep cut. Here's a deep cut. Now you can add these in here, but what I would do is I would just flick out with a 3RL, like that. To kind of make those lines. I think this is like a strap. So this like curly thing looks a little weird to me, so I might like change the shape a little bit of it. So I'm gonna get this outer shape and then it like folds over right here. So I would mark that behind the strap. I guess it is kind of cool, like weird little, like Tim Burton kind of hair. It looks like a little lopsided. You could change it if you want, or you can keep it, but let's just, we'll just map this out. I would, you know, it would be like, this would be dark. It's kind of lighter right here. And then dark again there. Simple, simple, legible. We got the ear in here. Ears are always fucking weird. Yeah, frame up the ear. But yeah, hair. Hair we're keeping simple. Let's focus on the hair real quick. You know, we have this light piece of hair right there, dark here. I'm just keeping the shape. Like I said, I'm not following these follicles exactly. That's kind of shitty. Hold on. There we go. Cool, and like, look how simple this is. Like, I'm done stenciling that. You know, when I come in, this would all be black. This would be like black or really dark. This would be our next darkest. You know, and then here. And then this one. But when you look at it with all the cross hatching, like, we're keeping it simple. I like to leave it kind of open and just have my flow in there. Now I probably would add texture, like as I'm coming in with the 3RL, I'd be flicking out from here just to make the like fading line. But I'm not gonna stencil it, you know? I'm really stenciling the tones. So this is a good example of how I break it down. Darkest, next darkest, you know, mid, light. To me, that's how I would work it. So that's how I'm gonna stencil it. A lot of the little textures that are in there, I'm just gonna make it up when I'm in the tattoo. If my stencil is too crowded and I put that thing on and I can't read it, I'm gonna freak out. I'm gonna have crazy anxiety. So simple, the better. Now we'll just touch some stuff on the face. With eyes, like, I'm always going to do this line here. You know, to me, that's the most important line of the eye, that top, you know, eyelid. I'll map out the highlight point, the pupil, and the outside of the eye, right? There's always like some kind of hard shadow on top of there. This guy here. This has like weird folds. Then this little thing, this comes in here. Under the eye, it's never really like a line. It's always like a really light thing, so I might put it in a little skinny the way I did, and then just map out this area. You know, sometimes there's the eyelashes. I can't think of names of any of the body parts right now, but eyelashes there. We have our bottom fold here. You know, we got shadow, shadow. Keep it pretty light. You can, I've definitely seen people like making the eyes way too busy. So I like my stencils to be like open. I like to be able to tell like where everything is and begins, like break down the anatomy, like cool eyelid, you know, some eyelashes, bottom of the eye, saggy thing that everyone has, top of the eyelid. Cool. And then this kind of brings here. How will I end this? Now, the cheek will just come in. Looks like there's like an eyelash or something there. And there. To me, that makes sense. You know, I'll just maybe add this little shadow in. But if I get rid of the reference, like I can see exactly what it is. To me, it's, you know, it's an eye. You might want to go into more detail, like you might want this little shadow here. You might want to just remind yourself that there's a light gray there. Whatever works, but as long as you can see what's going on. I'll make this hard line on the nose. With the nose, I always map out the nostril. I'll put a half curve on this because usually it's dark on the side of the nostril, but not so much on the top. So for me, just to remind myself of that, I'll like hard line the bottom, and I might just like dot around here to like let myself know the flow of the shadow, but also to remind myself not to make like a deep hard cut shadow there. You know, we got a little one here, and then a weird one here, and then I'll just frame out the highlights. Remember, start with what you know. I know I have the darks in there, I know I have the highlights there. I got one here. There is like a light shadow here, but you know, if you tattoo noses a lot, you have to be careful with those shadows. You can over define it. So I'll use those dotted lines, which kind of tells me like, yo, John, be careful. This is an area you could easily mess up. Eyebrows, you know, I'll put my lines in here. And then I like to just kind of make it more of like a block shape. Like do something like this. And I'll make it up. Some people like the lines, like where you're just doing like this. They both kind of can show the flow. I used to do my eyebrows exactly like this, but now I'd rather just kind of like I said, like block them out or however you do it. These are just preferences. We're talking about preferences. So the gums in this are pretty dark. One thing I usually have to be careful about is not making the gums too dark because they're typically not black, but I'm just doing shapes almost like you would see in that like LA West Coast style where they just leave the teeth like white. Then I'm getting this top lip here, and I'm always like checking my reference while I'm tattooing, because sometimes like you have a line on something but it's not a line, you know, it might just be like a mid-tone or a dark gray, and if you don't check it, you might make a line where there's not supposed to be one, right? Just mapping out these little shadows in there. I'll do like a highlight here, probably add some, you know, we got this cast shadow falling over here. That guy there, there's another shadow here, map out the highlight. Here's like a pretty deep line. You know, we're just making our way up. So I would finish this out, you know, we'll take a look at it without our reference. To me, like I can see the character in there. Like it makes sense to me. It's not too crowded where I'm like, is this some kind of crazy road map? I'll just put the chin in there quick so we can see it a little bit better. You know, some of these character lines, the cheek and the face. You know, and as you do this, you can really see the character forming. All right, so we're at the end of the stencil. So I just finished that up really quick. You guys can see what it looks like without the stencil. Oh. This is why we check. I'm seeing I forgot some stuff in the neck, so I'm gonna go back and hit that. Just get these here. Here, I'll remind myself that that's in shadow. We're gonna come back, we'll check it again. Cool, the backgrounds are in, the levels are in. I can see the eyes. The hair looks good to me. I can see the flow. I can see the separation, cool. For me, this is a workable stencil. Just add this in there. Cool. So at this point, what I would do then is I would come over to the saturation, bring it down. It brings it to a gray. Then I'm going to come over to the brightness and I'm going to make it black. And then I'm going to multiply and merge my layers a few times just to give me some really dark lines. And we're ready to go. So that's how I would stencil this image. I hope this was helpful for you guys. Me personally, I use the Epson printer where I just print out the stencils. There's a bunch of ways to print out the stencils. You know, you can use the Thermofax. You could do them by hand, which I don't see a lot of people doing anymore. Or like me, print them right out. In order to do that, I need these dark lines. That's why I multiplied and merged the layers. But this is my Jester stencil. Again, thank you guys so much on the 10,000 subs. I'm thrilled with how this channel's going. I'm in the comments every day. I hear you guys. I listen to what you're saying. I'm trying to put out videos in regards to what you want. If there are more videos you want or specific things that I can go over with you or one of our artists, let me know. Let me know in the comments. I'm seeing a bunch of tattooers, non-tattooers in the comments. Share this with your friends. You know, tell them about it. I'm so excited about the channel. If you guys have requests on artists, techniques, videos, equipment, anything, you know, I'm here to answer the questions. We got some giveaways coming up. I'm stoked with the 10,000 subs. So if we get to 15K, I'm just giving shit away. We have all kinds of like equipment, tools, stuff like that I'd love to give away. If we get to the 15K subs, I'll let you know, how to enter that giveaway. So that's our next milestone. But again, thank you guys so much. Look forward to seeing you guys in the next video.